Something felt off. You looked down and saw blood. You screamed and quickly got out of the bath, seeing that it was coming from you. You quickly got dressed, only with a underrobe, and ran to find someone. You found no one as you started to feel dizzy, probably from the blood loss. You turned the corner and saw Kai walking to his room. "Kai!" You yelled, him turning. You grabbed his sleeve. Kai, I don't feel well." That was when you passed out in his arms, him seeing the trail of blood following to you. Kai ran to the doctor's room and demanded he helped, which he did. Kai paced back and forth outside the room, so much that Haru and Yona found him. "Master, why are you here?" asked Yona. "Is something wrong with Yin? What did you do with her?" Yona asked, grabbing him by the sleeve. That was when the door opened, revealing the doctor. He looked down as he closed the door, everyone looking at him. "The lady is fine, but the baby," he spoke. Haru placed her hands over her mouth as Yona looked to tear, Kai looking shocked. "She lost much blood thanks to something. Sir, if I may ask to run tests on her to see what..." Kai grabbed him by the collar. "Do anything you can to see who did this. And if you do anything bad to her, I will kill you," he spoke as Yona and Haru ran into the room. Seeing you asleep, you looked sickly. Your skin looked so pale. Sweat going down your face. "This looks worse than last time," Yona spoke. Haru gasped at her words. "What do you mean last time?" "She has been poisoned once, but it was due to the ladies smoking. This looks on purpose." Yona spoke, thinking. "But the mistress is kind to everyone," Haru yelled, but only enough as not to disturb you. "Yes, but I think the highest ranking are not the pleased with her being one from the realm of humans, and second climbing the ranks so high," Yona exclaimed. When she did this, was Kai overheard from talking with a doctor, walking in as he got done. Haru, Yona, the two girls looked at him. "Once Yona wakes, you are to go with her to the Jade Pavilion, where she will rest until I get this straightened." The two girls bowed and left the room. Kai watched as they left, closed the door, and waited till he couldn't hear their footsteps. Kai then walked to the side of the bed and knelt down next to you, seeing every now and then you would twitch. He laid his hand on top of yours, felt the drain of this poison had taken on you, holding your hand and bringing it to his lips, kissing your now smaller hand. After he let go and went to walk away, he heard you. "Kai," he heard you talk in your sleep. He walked back and grabbed your hand once more. "Kai, please." Were you dreaming of him? He watched as you slept, hearing from time to time you saying his name or some other words. As he laid his head on your bed, closing his eyes, as it got later and later. Once you woke up the next day morning, the sun shined through, feeling something heavy on your stomach. You looked down to see Kai. Did he stay with you all night? What happened to you? All you could remember was running to Kai for something, but what? Kai? You spoke? He asked. "What happened? I feel weird." You spoke. Kai immediately looked at you, and his face didn't look the same as it usually did. "You were poisoned," and the baby's gone." You froze when he said that. You lost the only thing you were actually, surprisingly, looking forward to. And tomorrow you'll leave to have some time away to heal. He spoke. Hopefully Haru and Yona have packed your bags. You nodded. Will you be going as well at some point? You asked, which he nodded. Also, I plan on sending Eri with you. You nodded. You stay here for a bit. He got up and kissed your head. The next day, you arrived at the Jade Pavilion. Eri looking around the place. There had been somehow expected you and how the place cleaned. But all you did was sit at the igwa and watch the koi swim. Tears round down your face as you felt like you had nothing left. Was when you saw Eri run around the garden, tripping, and she hit a rock. You quickly got up as she fell. You knelt down to her, pulling her in your lap. Hush, hush, Eri. I'm here for you. You spoke as you combed through her hair, seeing Yona run to get bandages since her kimono had torn and her knee scraped. You picked her up and walked to the igwa, sat down on it, and combed through her hair. Hush, hush, my little rabbit. I am here for you, no matter what. Anything that comes your way, I'll make sure it doesn't harm you. You sang as Eri quieted down and cuddled into your arms, resting her head on your chest. You heard Yona walking to you, kneeling down with a box. You grabbed a Band-Aid and placed it on her knee. Eri, could you take off your kimono? It's torn. You spoke, then looked at Yona. And could you get me a needle and thread? You asked her, to which she nodded. Eri took off her kimono, and all she had left was the under kimono. You took it in your hands and looked at the hole. Once Yona was back, you sewed the whole thing back up. Even if it wasn't traditional for nobles to have their clothes sewn, and just buy brand new ones, you saw that as pointless, since the clothing could still be worn. So, when you were done, you cut the string with your teeth and then looked at it. You examined it, seeing as if nothing was there. Thankfully, it was clean of any more, so no dust and no dirt. So you handed it to Eri with a smile. She looked at it, confused. It looked as if there had never been a torn in the first place. Eri put the kimono on and looked around the piece of clothing, seeing that it was perfect once again. Then Eri went back to playing in the garden. Don't you wish life was like this forever? You heard Yona ask. Yes. You spoke out, not thinking, and just watched her. Hey, Yona, did you get to know what the gender of the baby was? You asked her. She nodded, but then was hesitant, but spoke anyways. It would have been a boy. You sighed and looked at her. It would have been nice to see him grow. You spoke, smiling at the girl. Haru came behind her as you looked at Eri once again. What you didn't notice was that Haru whispered to Yona about something. Yona looked shocked as she looked at the girl, the two running somewhere, and that was what you saw. You wondered what came up for them to run like that, so you'll have to ask later. You got up. Eri, come on, it's almost time for dinner. You spoke, walking to the girl to come to your side. When she did, both of you went inside. Truly, you weren't so set on eating someone else's cooking, so you ended up making yourself something. It was simple, but enough to make you happy. Once lunch was over, you went to your room and looked at the two paint colors. Should I? You asked yourself. You looked at the door, wondering if you should do it. You then turned back to the paint and picked it up, walking to the table with a paintbrush and brush. You let your mind set free, seeing what you could possibly make. Once you picked up the brush, nothing but slats. You laid your head down on the table, things you wanted to do. That was until something came to your mind. You picked back up your brush and painted on the paper. On the paper, you painted a box of cards. Then you looked to the door, making sure that the door was closed still. Then, taking out the deck out of the paper and looked at the cards. Just what you wanted. Spades, hearts, clover, and diamonds. To be honest, you didn't even know what to do with your life anymore. It all meant nothing to you now. You laid them out. You were going to match them with its partner. After a couple rounds, you didn't even notice how Yona and Haru looked at you through the open door. They saw how miserable you looked. They closed the door and walked together. I feel bad for her, Haru spoke, sighing. Well, of course anyone who would actually care would, Yona spoke. Then look down. But you're right. She has never been like this before. They continued to walk. We should get the lady food, Haru spoke. But Yona stopped her. No, remember, after the poison, she doesn't eat others' cooking. Haru looked back. That food wasn't tested. It came right from the chef, Haru spoke. Yes, but the chef knows if they were to do it, their heads would be on the line, Haru spoke. Yeah, but that means... Haru then stopped, and they both looked at each other with wide eyes. The servers! No, they wouldn't. Mistress Yin happens to be nice to them, Haru thought. What about Lady Yaba? She doesn't like her very much, Haru spoke. Maybe, but there could be many who would poison her. What they didn't know was a crow listening into their conversation as they spoke. Well, it had since a moment before. It had been there since the moment they got to the pavilion. It flied back as it had enough listening to the girls' gossip. Yin, Yona spoke as she opened the door. You hummed. We know you don't like others cooking, but we made you something since it's almost supper. You heard Haru speak. Just place it here. You pointed to an empty spot on the table as one of them walked over to you. You heard Haru speak. My mistress? Where did you get those cards? You thought on what to say. I found them, you spoke, looking at the food they placed down. Really? Where were they? Haru spoke. In here. You were ready for this, making a couple more decks of cards and placing them in a cabinet. Oh, wow! I didn't know we had any, Yona gasped, with her hands interlocked. Go ahead and take one. You smiled at the two. She quickly took one and started to open it. Yona, what have you two brought me? You asked as you looked at the dish. It's squid. I remember you talking about how much you loved it. You looked at the dish, then took it in your fingers and examined it, seeing if there was any issue with it. Both Yona and Haru looked at you with worry in their eyes as they looked at your face. You then took a bite and swallowed it. They began to look nervous as you continued to eat. You then turned to the two and smiled. Thank you very much. It tastes like the way my mom used to cook it. The two began to cry just because they finally got you to eat after the day. Haru? Yona? Would you two like to play with me? You asked the two. What type of game? Yona asked. It's called Go Fish. You have to match the card with its partner. You smiled. The two looked at each other and smiled, nodding their heads. They sat down and played with you. It's turning into a full-on gambling at some point, playing with the coins you all had brought to play for stuff if needed. Days like this continued, about a week maybe. The three of you playing games, even Ari sometimes, though you and Ari would play together. With that, you found out she was good at guessing the next card. May not be the right suit, but the number was on spot. Oh, I forgot to mention that Master Kai will be here tomorrow, Haru spoke. Oh, well, it seems our time here will come to an end soon. You sighed as you placed a pair down. Aw, man, you heard Yona. No, he will be staying here, Haru spoke. What, really? Yona gasped. My, you spoke. Wait, then who will watch the house? Yona yelled. I don't know. I can't ask those questions or else I'll be killed. Haru spoke, placing a pair down. Come on! Haru spoke under her breath. I'll ask, no worries, you two. You smiled, placing your last 4 cards down, which meant you won. Dang it! Haru spoke this time, and Yona only placed her head on the table. Yona had gotten only 3 pairs, and Haru got 5, with you getting 7. You were very good, and were very pleased with your wins over the week. You then heard a knock on the door. Who could it be? Yona asked, then looked at the clock. It's 8 p.m. Who would want to see you? Yona got up and was about to open the door, but Ari came running in. Yin! She was crying, holding her clothes tight. Ari, what happened? You asked as you picked her up and held her in your lap, patting her head. You shh every so often, getting her up and walking around, rocking her and cleaning her face from her tears. Yona, Haru, you may leave for bed. You smiled. The two bowed and left the room. You walked to your bed and sat down, still combing through her hair. You held her face in front of yours. Now, what's wrong? What happened? You asked as you wiped her tears. I had a nightmare. She teared as she remembered a bit of it. Whatever it is, I'm here for you. You placed her head on your shoulder as you rubbed her back. After some time, she had fallen asleep. You placed her in your bed and covered her with your blanket. You laying down with her and cuddling her as you slept. When you woke up the next day and you looked at Ari, she was still fast asleep, so you kissed her forehead and got out of bed and went to get dressed and brush your hair. Your hair had gotten much longer since it was common not to cut hair, but you were getting tired of tying it up every day and doing it. You were so close to grabbing a knife and cutting it off yourself since scissors weren't really a thing. You placed your brush on the table and grabbed a hairpin, taking some of your hair and placing it where the hairpin would make sure it standed up. You smiled at your appearance in the mirror. Now it is time to leave. You smiled as you heard Yona. Is Kai here? You smiled. He's almost, she continued. Then, when he gets here, tell him I'll be in the garden. She bowed as she left. You got up and walked to the garden, where koi of all colors were. Hydrangeas were the same. You smiled as the warm rays of the sun landed on your face. You were glad to find out that you couldn't get sunburned. You remembered playing in the summertime and being burnt like a baked potato. Yen, his voice called out to you as your thoughts, and you looked upon him. How have you been? You haven't done anything wrong with you? He placed his hand on your cheek. You looked away. Yes, I'm fine. I haven't done anything wrong to myself, you sighed. I'm just making sure. He looked at you. I'm not ready to go back just yet. A tear ran down your face. Kai reached his hand to your cheek and wiped away the tear. You can stay as long as you want, though me and Ari will have to return at some point. You hummed, knowing that he might. Now, the reason I came here. You turned to him, looking confused. He sighed. He looked like he didn't really want to say this. Many were telling me that we need to have an heir as soon as possible. He then sighed, placing his hand on his forehead. But you're still grieving. He looked away. Wow, where was this that first time? You asked. He went silent. But before I leave, I would like to have a word with you. He spoke. My lady, what have you called me for? The lady grabbed the hand of the bedridden woman. The woman turned her head to the lady. In my dreams, I saw a girl, not from this world. She is the key to helping me. The woman gasped when speaking. But you don't mean her, do you, my lady? The lady asked. The woman nodded. Then I shall get her for you, the lady spoke, bowing, then leaving the room. What did she need? Asked a young girl. Kitsumi, so, to the Kazuki's house and bring the lady here. The little girl looked confused, but nodded as she walked out of the lady's house, running down the path till she was at a gate. Sir, I wish to be let out. My lady needs her. The guards opened the gate, but confused, as she ran to the city, passing people as she ran, and when she came to the house, she slowed down. Please let me in. I need to speak with the mistress and mister of the Chizaki house. The guards looked at each other when a man walked to the gate. Both are not here at the moment, but what is it that you need? Asked a man with white hair. My lady has fallen sick, and if not treated, she will die. She has called for Mistress Kizaki, she yelled. That was when he saw her kimono, a chrysanthemum, also known as the flower of royalty.